A brother gone missing, a sister's tears hiding something darker. She didn't lose him, she killed him, and now the truth is coming for her. In the quiet town of Ashwood Hollow, a brother vanished without a trace. But the truth was buried closer than anyone imagined. His sister, Lily Willis, didn't just betray him, she killed him, and with the help of her lover, she thought she could hide the blood forever, until one woman, Detective Mara Quinn, started digging and unearthed a secret that would shatter the whole town. The call came in just after dawn, one of those slow, fog-heavy mornings when the air feels thick with secrets. I was pouring my first cup of coffee when dispatch radioed, possible missing person, rural area off County Road 14. Name, Ethan Willis. Missing persons in small towns like Ashwood Hollow rarely made the morning news. Usually, it's a runaway teenager or someone sleeping off a hangover by the lake. But something in the dispatcher's tone made me pause. There was a tremor in her voice, a hint that this wasn't routine. By the time I pulled up to the Willis property, the mist still hugged the treetops. Their farmhouse sat on a lonely patch of land, 2 miles from the nearest neighbor, surrounded by dry fields and rusted fences, the kind of place where silence feels alive. A woman was standing on porch wrapped in a thick cardigan. Her dark hair hung in a messy bun, and her eyes were swollen from crying. "I'm Detective Mara Quinn," I said, flashing my badge. "You must be Lily Willis." She nodded, "Yes." "Ethan's my brother. He didn't come home last night." Her voice trembled, but her posture was composed, almost too composed. I've seen panic before, the real kind. This was something else, controlled fear, maybe guilt, or maybe just shock. "When was the last time you saw him?" I asked, taking out my notepad. "Last night, around 9. He went out to meet a friend at the diner. He never came back." "Which diner?" "McNeil's, the one off Route 19. I jotted that down, then glanced toward the dirt driveway. Ethan's pickup truck wasn't there. Did he take his truck? "Yes, but the sheriff's deputy found it this morning, abandoned near Miller's Creek." That made my stomach tighten. Miller's Creek wasn't on the way to anywhere. It was a dead-end dirt road that cut through the woods about 5 miles north. "Did he have any enemies?" "Anyone he'd been fighting with lately?" She hesitated. "No, Ethan's not like that. He's quiet, keeps to himself." "He works at the lumber yard." Her eyes darted briefly toward the window, like she was checking if someone could hear us. I made a note of that too. Inside, the house smelled faintly of coffee and lemon cleaner. Everything was neat, too neat. The Willis family pictures lined the walls, Lily and Ethan. As kids by a Christmas tree, their parents, both deceased now, and a recent photo of the 2 siblings on the porch, smiling with that not kind of happiness people fake when life's been rough. There was another picture on a side table, Lily with a man I didn't recognize, handsome, sharp, featured the kind of guy who wore confidence like cologne. "Your boyfriend?" I asked casually. She blushed faintly. "That's Derek. He lives in town." Something about the way she said it felt rehearsed. By mid-morning, I was at the scene where Ethan's truck had been found. A deputy, Reed Nolan, met me there. "Here she is," he said, nodding at the mud. Streaked forward, keys still in the ignition. No sign of a struggle. The driver's door was open, the seat was pushed back, and a half-empty thermos sat in the cup holder. There was no blood, no broken glass. Just tire tracks veering slightly toward the creek, then stopping short. "Any footprints?" I asked, couple of partials leading toward the woods. Might be his, might not. I crouched near the mud, examining the prints. 1 pair of boots, men's size 10, probably Ethan's, and a second, lighter set. A woman's shoes, get a cast of both. I ordered. Reed raised a brow. "You think he wasn't alone?" "I think he trusted whoever was with him. Back in town, I dropped by McNeil's diner, the place Lily said Ethan was headed. The waitress recognized him immediately. Oh, sure, Ethan was here last night, she said, chewing gum, sat by the window." He looked tense, like he was waiting for someone. Around 9:15, this guy showed up, all brown jacket, scruffy beard. They talked for maybe 20 minutes, then they left together. "You know who the guy was?" She shook her head. "Never seen him before." but Ethan didn't look happy to see him. "And did you see Ethan's sister here last night?" "Lily." "No, not that I noticed. I left my card anyway. Something wasn't adding up." Ethan meets a strange man. Later, his truck is found abandoned near a creek. His sister seems nervous but not broken. And there's a boyfriend no one seems to know much about. That evening, I stopped by the Willis farmhouse again. The sun was bleeding red through the trees, casting long shadows across the fields. Derek was there this time, hands in his pockets, pretending to look concerned. He shook my hand with too much confidence. "Detective Quinn, right? Lily told me about you. Tough case, huh? Every missing person's case is tough." I replied, "When did you last see Ethan?" He smirked faintly. "Couple days ago. We're not exactly close. He never liked me." "Why's that?" "Oh, you know, big brother stuff. Protective. Didn't think I was good enough for his sister." "Were you?" I asked. He laughed softly, but his eyes didn't. "Depends who you ask." Lily shot him a look. Quick, sharp, like a warning. I filed that away in the back of my mind. That night, as I drove back to my motel, the fog rolled in again, dense and silver, swallowing the headlights. The case was barely a day old, but I could already feel the shape of something dark beneath it. Small towns like Ashwood Hollow had a way of burying their secrets under layers of politeness and prayer. But I'd been doing this long enough to know. Every smile hides something, and every missing person leaves a shadow behind. I parked, turned off the engine, and sat in silence for a long minute. Somewhere in those woods I knew lay the truth, and I was going to find it, even if it meant digging through lies that had been festering for years. I barely slept that night. The wind clawed against the motel windows, and every creak of the wood felt like the echo of a whisper I couldn't quite catch. By morning, I had already decided I was going back to the creek. Something about the scene had been too clean. No struggle, no debris, no sign of panic. People don't just vanish neatly, not in the middle of nowhere. The sun was just burning through the fog when I arrived. Dew clung to the grass, sparkling like tiny glass shards. I followed the faint trail leading from the truck down toward the waterline. The ground was soft, easy to disturb. There were drag marks, subtle but there. I crouched, tracing the uneven impressions with my glove. Someone had tried to erase them, but not well enough. I followed the trail about 30 yards before I found it. Something half buried near a clump of reeds, a watch, leather band, cracked face, still ticking faintly, the initials EW etched on the back. Ethan Willis. I called for a forensics team to comb the area. By noon, I was back in town, standing across from the Willis farmhouse again. Lily opened the door before I even knocked, as if she'd been watching from the window. "Detective," she said, a nervous smile flickering on her lips. Did you find anything?" I studied her face. Her eyes were ringed with sleeplessness, her hands trembling slightly. "We found Ethan's watch," I said, "near Miller's Creek." She froze. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something, but nothing came out. I stepped closer. "You said he was meeting a friend at the diner. Any idea who that friend might have been?" She shook her head quickly. "No, I told you he didn't mention a name. Do you know anyone who drives a brown pickup? Maybe someone your brother didn't get along with?" Her gaze darted away. "No, I don't think so." Behind her, I caught sight of Derek in the kitchen, pretending to scroll on his phone. He wasn't listening, but his posture was too still, too deliberate. "Can we talk privately, Lily?" I asked. Her throat bobbed. I'd rather not. Derek's been helping me through all this. I smiled tightly. Sometimes talking helps too. Later that afternoon, I pulled the phone records for both Ethan and Lily. Small town carriers are slow, but with the sheriff's help, I got what I needed. Ethan's last call had been made at 8:47 p.m. An unknown number that pinged off a tower near Route 19, the same road leading to McNeil's Diner. The number was registered to a Derek Cole, so the boyfriend had met Ethan that night. When I called him in for questioning, he arrived with his usual swagger, a smirk perched lazily on his face. "Detective Quinn," he said, settling into the chair, "you wanted to talk." I slid the phone record across the table. "You were the last person to speak to Ethan Willis. Why didn't you mention that?" He glanced at the paper, unfazed, because it wasn't important. He called me, not the other way around. What did he want? To tell me to stay away from Lily. He said with a dry laugh he thought I was bad news. Guess he got that part right. I leaned forward, and what did you tell him? He shrugged, told him he should mind his own business. That was it. No threats, no argument, nothing worth remembering. His tone was casual, but his fingers tapped restlessly against the table. Where were you after that call? I asked at home. He said, ask Lily. I made a note of it, watching his eyes as I wrote. He looked calm, too calm. That evening, I returned to the Willis property with a warrant. Lily's expression when she opened the door was a mixture of fear and disbelief. What's going on? She asked, her voice quivering. Routine search. I said, we just need to rule a few things out. Her hands clutched the edges of her cardigan, knuckles white. This is insane, detective. Ethan's my brother. Why would I hurt him? That's what I'm trying to find out. As my team combed through the house, I noticed a faint chemical smell coming from the shed out back. When I opened the door, a chill ran through me. Inside, the floor had been recently washed. Too recently. The faint outline of boot prints remained near the drain. Lily, I called out. When was the last time anyone used this shed? She appeared in the doorway, pale as chalk. I don't know. Derek sometimes stores tools here. I looked around. No tools. Just a few crates, an old tarp, and a gas can. Mind if I take a look at Derek's vehicle? I asked. She blinked. He's not here. I noticed. I said, nodding toward the empty driveway. When's he coming back? Tomorrow, maybe. He said he needed some time alone. Her answer was too quick, too neat. Back at my motel, I replayed the day's findings in my head. The watch, the shed, the lies. I had enough smoke to know there was a fire somewhere, but I still couldn't see the flames. I called the forensics tech, hoping a breakthrough. Quinn, the tech said, his voice crackling through the line, you'll want to hear this. We ran a luminol test in that shed, found traces of blood near the drain, and not just any blood, male type O. Ethan Willis's type. I closed my eyes. The room suddenly felt smaller. We'll need DNA to confirm, I said quietly, already in motion. When I hung up, I stared at the motel ceiling for a long moment. Ethan hadn't disappeared. He'd been killed, and whoever cleaned that shed had tried to make sure. No one ever found out. The next morning, I stopped by Lily's place again. She opened the door slowly, eyes red, rimmed hair unkempt. I need to ask you again, I said gently. Where's Derek? She hesitated, then whispered, he went to the lake house. His uncle's cabin up near Ridge Point. I nodded, writing it down. Thanks, Lily. She looked up at me, voice barely a whisper. Detective, do you think he hurt Ethan? I met her gaze, steady. Do you? Her eyes welled with tears. I don't know anymore. It was the first honest thing she'd said to me. 2 hours later, I was driving toward Ridge Point. The road wound through endless stretches of pine and silence. The cabin sat alone by the water, weather beaten and quiet. Derek's truck was parked out front. I stepped out, hand instinctively resting on my holster. The door was unlocked. Inside, the air smelled of whiskey and sawdust. On the table sat a half-empty bottle, a cigarette burning in the ashtray, and a folded map of Miller's Creek. I found Derek in the back room, sitting on the floor staring at something in his hands. It was a photograph, him and Lily, smiling beside Ethan, the same one I'd seen at the house. When he looked up at me, his eyes were empty. Guess you found me, he said quietly. Where's Ethan, Derek? He laughed softly, bitterly. You already know, don't you? I didn't answer. He dropped the photo. You think you know what happened, but you don't. None of you do. Then tell me, I said. He looked at me for a long moment, then said, you should ask Lily what she wanted me to do. The lake was still that morning, too still, like the world was holding its breath. Derek sat on the floor of the cabin, staring out the window while I called back up. He didn't move, didn't run. It was as if the fight had already left him. When the deputies arrived, I had him taken into custody. He didn't resist. As they led him out, he looked over his shoulder and said, almost in a whisper, she made me do it. I didn't ask who she was. I already knew. At the station, Derek sat across from me in the interrogation room, his wrists cuffed, eyes bloodshot. He looked younger without his arrogance, just a man undone by guilt. Start from the beginning, I said quietly. He took a deep breath. Ethan hated me from day one. Said I wasn't good enough for Lily, that I'd ruin her life. He wasn't wrong about that, I guess, but she loved me, or at least that's what I thought. He looked down at his hands. A few nights ago, she came to me crying. Said Ethan was planning to sell the farm and move away, said she'd lose everything, our future, our home. She begged me to talk to him, to convince him to stay, so I did. Convince him, I asked, or threaten him. He winced. I didn't mean for it to go that far. We met at the diner. He told me to get out of town, said I was using her. He called her weak. I lost it. We started shouting, and I told him to come to the creek, that we'd settle it there, man to man. My pulse thudded in my ears, and she knew about this. He hesitated. She wanted me to scare him. Just scare him, that's what she said. What happened at the creek, Derek? He stared at the wall for a long moment. We argued. He shoved me first. I don't even remember picking up the wrench. It was in the truck bed. I swung once, just once. He fell, hit his head on the rocks. It was quiet after that. I let him sit in that silence. Finally, he whispered. I panicked. I called Lily, told her what happened. And what did she do? She came right away. No tears, no screaming. Just calm. Said we couldn't call the police, that they'd never believe it was an accident. She told me to put him in the shed until we could figure it out. He rubbed his face. She helped me clean the blood. Helped me move him, then she said she'd take care of everything. I leaned forward. Where is Ethan's body, Derek? He looked up at me with hollow eyes. You'll find him where she told me to leave him, buried behind the shed under the old apple tree. By the time we reached the Willis property, the sun was setting behind the hills, casting the sky in bruised shades of purple and gold. Deputies cordoned off the area while I approached Lily, who was standing on the porch, arms wrapped tightly around herself. Lily, I said softly, we found Ethan. Her face went pale. Found him. Derek confessed. I said, he told us what happened at the creek. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't break. Not yet. He killed my brother. He says it was an accident, but he also said you helped cover it up. Her lips trembled. That's not true. We found blood in your shed. Your fingerprints on the top. You were part of this, Lily. For a long moment she said nothing, then her mask cracked. He was going to ruin everything, she whispered. Ethan wanted to sell the land. This house was all I had left of our family. He wouldn't listen. He never listened. I begged him, but he said I was just being sentimental, that I was holding him back. Her voice turned cold, so I made him listen, by killing him. I asked quietly. I didn't kill him, she said sharply. Derek did. I just made sure he didn't get caught. I stepped closer. That makes you an accomplice, Lily. You could have stopped it. You could have called for help. Tears streaked her face, and then what? They'd put him in jail, and I'd lose everything. I just wanted to protect what was mine. Her voice broke into a whisper. I didn't mean for it to go that far. People rarely do. I said. The deputies moved in to arrest her. She didn't resist. As they led her past me, she looked up, eyes glassy. Do you believe me, detective, that I loved my brother? I met her gaze, maybe once, but love doesn't bury the truth. That night, the excavation team worked under floodlights. The air smelled of damp soil and decay. When they unearthed the body, the confirmation hit like a cold slap. Ethan Willis, the lost brother, now just bones and silence beneath the earth his sister had fought to keep. As they lifted the remains onto the stretcher, I turned away, staring out at the dark fields. Crickets chirped in the distance, oblivious to the human tragedy that had unfolded among them. In small towns like Ashwood Hollow, people always say they know their neighbors. But the truth is, you never really know anyone, not until you see what they'll do when love turns to fear and fear turns to desperation. A week later, I filed my final report. Derek had accepted a plea deal, manslaughter with cooperation. Lily was facing accessory and obstruction charges, likely years behind bars. The farmhouse was being sold to cover legal fees. The land Ethan had wanted to sell would now belong to strangers, poetic in a cruel kind of way. I drove by the property one last time. The apple tree swayed gently in the wind, its leaves whispering secrets to the night. The place looked peaceful again, as if pretending nothing had ever happened. But I knew better. Every crime scene has an echo. You can clean the floors, bury the evidence, wash the blood, but the truth lingers like a scar beneath the skin of the world. Back at my office, I poured myself a cup of coffee and stared at the case file one final time before closing it. The Willis case, it said in bold black letters. Another tragedy solved, another family destroyed by their own lies. But somewhere deep down, I couldn't shake the image of Lily's face when she said she loved her brother. Maybe she had, once. Maybe love, when twisted enough, can look a lot like hate. I've spent years chasing killers, liars, and ghosts, but this one would stay with me. Not because of how it ended, but because of how quietly it all began, with a sister, a brother, and a love that curdled into something unrecognizable. When I left the office, dawn was breaking again, soft light spreading over the fields. Another day, another case waiting to unfold, but as I drove past the empty farmhouse, I couldn't help whispering to the morning air, "Rest now, Ethan. Justice found you." Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.